Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may happen to be. You are welcome to the show, Talk About Your Community. I'm Todd Nilson, your host with Clock Tower Advisors. And so glad you're able to take a little time out of your day to spend with us here. Today's stream is all about talent communities. And if you live in the community professional world, you're certainly aware of things like communities of practice, support communities, brand communities. Not a lot of talk about talent communities. And my guest and I today have been thinking a lot about this topic. I came out of over 15 years in the technical recruiting space. My friend Ilker Akansel, who's joining me in just a minute here on screen, is an expert with some large enterprises, with some big names like Cisco and Google, and has thought a lot about how talent plays in the kinds of online community platforms and spaces in which we work. So it was a natural topic as he and I have been getting together and been friends over the past couple of years. This is something that's emerged as we think something that's important and valuable. And I noticed a lot of people who signed up for the stream came from the recruiting and the HR world. Welcome, my friends. I still feel like I'm one of you, even though I haven't been a practicing recruiter for some years. I've been talking to a lot of my friends and colleagues who've been in this space for a long time, and Ilker and I, who are both very passionate about the topic of talent communities and generally community building online overall, are really happy to talk. We want to road test your ideas about this. We'd love to hear the extent to which you're using communities for your recruiting practices, for your talent engagement practices over time, and we'll kind of go from there. So what you'll get out of today's conversation is maybe some ideas that you can bring back to your organization or apply or think about. If you'd like to talk to Ilker and I about these things one-on-one or in a side conversation, we'd be very happy to have that as a one-off with you. And in the meantime, I'll just say this particular live stream is always about community building, whether in person or online, usually that combination of the two, which are the real powerhouse in the world. And I'll say that our next stream, we try to do these every 2 weeks, but with the holidays, we're going to have a little bit of a hiatus. Our next event is going to be January the 13th. And that one is going to be about building accessible communities online. I'm going to have as my guest Shelby Edwards. She's out of New York, and she runs an organization called Inclusive Communication Service. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that old adage that good usability is good accessibility, and vice versa. And hope you'll be able to join us for that. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. But enough preamble. Let's jump into the meat of our conversation today. I'm going to welcome onto the stream here my good friend and colleague Ilker Akansel, who's coming here live under great duress. He's been sick this week, but he still managed to be able to jump in and join us here. The very definition of bravery. Ilker, my friend, how are you today? You're coming into us from Istanbul, right?
That's correct. Yes. So it's just 4 minutes past 7 p.m. where I am. So that's why I'm, having this sort of romantic lighting going on. So for anyone, starting their day, especially in the US, good morning to you. And of course, anybody joining after their long work day in Europe and even in some parts of Asia and Turkey, of course, good evening. And I hope you had a great week. So of course, it's never good to, start with an event by coming clean, but I need to come clean about my voice. I really do sound like a very bad Elvis impersonator, but, it's one of those things. Unfortunately, that's the legacy I was left with after a few days of a cold. But rest assured that my jaw muscles are in perfect order, as I was telling Todd before the stream started. Definitely, I'm more than happy and very, very passionate about talent communities, as Todd said, and that can overcome almost anything.
I'm so glad you're able to make it on today, man. And I certainly wish you a speedy recovery, as does Jenny Wiggle, who just gave us a shout out in the chat stream. By the way, we welcome your questions and your ideas and your observations. as Kalisa's, who is our engineer behind the scenes here, just put up on the screen, please jump in, offer us your ideas, your experiences, give us reflections on anything that we say. We love the interactivity of the live stream. And I mean, that's the purpose of doing this stuff on LinkedIn Live, and also simultaneously streaming out on YouTube and, at least for now, Twitter, until that world implodes. I don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but we'll see. So Ilker, let's talk a little bit about this idea of talent communities. You and I have been collaborating on this idea for, I think, well over a year now. We are just bringing to light a website and a joint partnership. And again, this is not a sales pitch conversation, but I'm going to mention it because it explains why we're talking about this together. An organization we're calling Talent Led, and it's all about the idea of incorporating talent communities into an organization's talent strategy, talent engagement strategy overall. Do you want to give a little bit of background about like why this was interesting to you? I gave, before you came on this stream, I explained sort of my orientation as a recruiter and my love of this. Do you want to give a little color commentary about how you entered into this exciting world of applying the things we know about online communities to the world of recruiting and retention and engagement of talent in an organization?
Oh, definitely. And thanks for, starting with that question. It's really important to give some context to the listeners. So as you said, we've been, collaborating on this for over a year now. This was a joint passion of ours. Of course, yours comes from the industry, and of course, your extensive experience in community building and online community building and management afterwards. So mine comes from the fact that, I personally saw that there was a massive gap in the companies basically managing the journey of a talent as it flows, as the talent actually flows through their company. So I saw firsthand, I experienced it myself, I saw it in some of the organizations that I partook on. Definitely there was a lot of missed opportunities I saw in terms of managing candidates and of course employees. And quite importantly, and I think, let's be very honest, that this was probably one of the things that, kicked the whole thing off, the alumni, because this was one of the anchor points that started our conversations. So of course, Todd and I, we got together in the CMX world. If you're not part of it, if you're a community professional, please, do consider being part of the CMX, Slack space and the general, sort of CMX domain. As a community professional, it's a great place where we met our beloved Star Wars friend Jenny as well, who's watching us. And thanks for your well wishes. So certainly it was an opportunity for us to, to come together and then talk about this sort of shared passion. It turned out that, getting more conversed into community building, it became really, really evident that, many of the notions of community building and management could be applied to the talent journeys of the companies. So the talent management strategy of the companies. So we noticed with Todd, the feelings are mutual. So I'm talking about, talking in his place as well. So I'm sure he'll connect me, but, I know him very well, and his thoughts very well on the subject. That we're very much on the same page in terms of our approach. We thought that these were, there were a lot of the mismanagements and missed opportunities in the interim, and the candidates were just seen as a virtual, pile of CVs or resumes, whatever you want to call them. Basically, they were just a virtual group of people. They were sort of called upon, if and when, something comes up, but this was very rare. This was a mechanism that was never utilized. The employee community concept, came into the scene, and especially it became much more important during the times of COVID, during the times of remote working and everything, because just getting to know the workers and getting to know your colleagues, it became much more important and much more difficult actually in an online setting, which was something that was never experienced before. This is another sort of tangent we have with Todd in terms of passion. So we like remote working, we like assignment-based working and that sort of thing. We believe that this approach, this understanding is also the future. But let's go back to that. So employee communities, we saw that they became they have fast became part of a company's success these days, and especially with the talent becoming more and more difficult to find the right talent. And let me go back to one of the anchors and the starting points of our conversations. A few years ago, I examined a few programs that were delivered by some consultancy companies, and they were about providing skills to people that left the company out of their own accord, or they were forced to due to the company being downsizing or anything like that. So these were called sort of outskilling programs and reskilling programs. Of course, it was to prepare the talent to the next for the next stage of their journey, whether it's something that they really wanted to do but they didn't know how to do it, or it was something that they were forced to do because of changing market conditions, because of a number of things that we experienced in the last 2 to 3 years. It's now anybody who's listening and hearing what I'm saying, I'm sure that they'll sympathize that let's rewind to the first month of 2020. Nobody could have predicted what happened in the last few years, but we believe, Todd and I, that the conversation for talent communities, meaning that seeing the talent journey in a company with the perspective of community building and community management, is the key for success in 2023 and beyond, as we are moving to the next stage after the big changes brought by the pandemic and a lot of other things that were related and unrelated to the pandemic. This is the gist of our sort of start and thoughts. And basically, this is the reason why we just thought that talent communities would be an important thing to focus on. And of course, just to finalize what I'm saying in the beginning, we noticed for some reason or the other that both the recruitment industry, employee success, employee happiness, let's say, departments, and of course the community management and community building industries, we just saw that there was an opportunity, because this was an avenue that wasn't explored as much as we'd like to see it explored. So that's why Todd and I, we got together, and then we decided to focus, completely double down on talent communities, and to install an approach of managing, leading, supporting talent as it flows through an organization. I hope I've done you proud, Todd, on this one.
No, well said, my friend. Well said. And I hope you don't mind. I'm sharing up on the screen some slide work that you and I had put together when I was fortunate to have an opportunity to be on stage at CMX this past year on the virtual stage. But this was a labor of love between the two of us, talking a little bit about what are the things that are sort of the challenges to talent acquisition, talent management, in 2022 now, where we are. Recruiting was already challenging process. And I think, before we jump any further, we should probably offer a definition of what we think a talent community is. And then I think there's a great question from Jenny that would be a nice springboard for us to talk a little bit about some of the elements of what they are. But basically, to talk a little bit about this joint venture and sort of what we were doing. The idea of a talent community is an approach to cultivating talent and hiring practices that connects potential, current, and former employees via online community, so that they can do a number of different things. Before I talk about those number of things, that one of the things that's central to the idea that you and I had was that that it's not just the people you're recruiting. It's not just the top of the funnel. It's the people that are your potential employees. And again, keeping a flexible definition of what that is. That it's not necessarily employees, not necessarily a full-time employee. It might be a contractor. It might be people that you're crowdsourcing ideas from. But having them engaged as talent around your brand and around your ideas is super important. And then it's also your current employees, the people that are inside the house. How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them energized? And then, and this is often neglected or not executed as beautifully as it could be, and we think online communities has a lot of potential for this, your former employees, people who've left the organization and moved on and done some other things. And so, the good things that come out of this is co-creation of culture and processes of the organization, sustaining hiring capacity. I don't know how many times as a recruiter you have candidates that jump out of the process. They turn down an offer late because they haven't had enough contact with the organization, or they haven't felt like they've been brought in enough into that process. And don't worry, my friend, I see you're struggling mightily with your illness. So
I'm good. I'm good. I'm more than happy. I'm trying to time it wisely. I've been experienced enough to control it very, very well. Look, this is really, really important what you're saying. Please do continue. Don't worry about me at all.
well, I will always worry about you. That's not going to happen, my friend. But sustaining hiring capacity, increasing the number of viable job candidates in the marketplace, and decreasing the time to offers. I think this is definitely a metric that can be moved by incorporating more use of online communities to engage talent, and then just keeping everybody highly engaged with the brand and increasing the likelihood of long-term retention. And we'll even talk a little bit about boomerang hires. So how all of this works, if you think a little bit about the hiring journey for candidates, this is a roughly linear map, and I'm sorry it's a little small to see, but if you kind of look along the left-hand side here, that whole idea of sourcing candidates from a variety of different kinds of places. This is the world in which the recruiter lives, or your HR generalist lives, trying to bring people into the process for consideration, interviewing them, conducting Zoom screens or in-person interviews, and then as that person becomes a more viable candidate over time, conducting background checks, negotiating offers, onboarding them, bringing them into the organization, and maybe even asking them for referrals, and keeping them engaged over time. Hopefully, at some point, there is some kind of offboarding or outboarding as somebody gives their quit notice, that they get an exit interview. There's an opportunity for them to talk about why they were leaving. Hopefully, they're leaving on good terms. And if they are a viable candidate, maybe at some point they may be rehired as an employee for the organization in some other way. So you and I have had many conversations about this, Ilker, but I think like one of the things that I've shared with you in the past was that this was one of my experiences. I worked for a tech consulting firm for a number of years. I left them with the statement that I wanted to change my terms of employment. Not that I necessarily wanted to quit entirely, but I wanted to move to more of a contractor status. And I left the organization and was able to come back in, as I called it, for a second tour of duty, because we were both mutually able to keep those doors open. I'd like to see that codified in many organizations. And it's something that's a little difficult to mention or to kind of keep working. But the idea of overlaying a set of community platforms on top of this process is really what we're talking about, and the opportunity here around it. So, and so those things may be like external earned or owned communities. They may be internal for your organization. Maybe it's your Microsoft Teams environment. Maybe it's Loom Apps or Mosaic 365 or some other kind of organizational platform. And then finally, there's maybe an external community platform for alumni, or an extranet style kind of platform. So, laying those things on top, you can kind of see by the dotted lines here, there's a way to keep your talent engaged at all stages in that process. And so we can kind of get into a little bit of those elements as we talk here a little further. But I wanted to put something up on the screen from Jenny, because I think it's a great question that's well worth taking a look at. Jenny asks, why do you think talent communities haven't received as much attention as communities of practice or other digital communities? I have some thoughts about this, but Ilker, do you want to try to tackle this from your perspective?
Yeah, don't worry about me, by the way. Just sort of struggling. Just like any other person on earth. What you do is that you just get like some attack, some fit, and then basically it just then it feels like nothing has happened. So,
No worries.
this is a great question from Jenny, and it's not a stab at the industry or anything like that. It certainly is. I believe, and I share this with you, Todd, as well. It's about the sort of talent management and the recruitment industry, in some ways being stuck in the older times where just pre-internet, so to speak, even. And that's the reason why I believe that many of the concepts, many of the thoughts have not actually evolved to the present day. As Todd, you were saying, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here, but things like human resources, fresh CVs, fresh candidates. What about some stale candidates? You can't really label humans in this way. Or you can't really, in my opinion, label humans as resources. And this exactly falls into the area of community or community building or community management, where we see every person differently. It's about things that don't really scale. So therefore, we believe that a community approach, a community management, community leadership approach is the natural way to be able to treat candidates, employees, and alumni in the right way. So for some reason, it didn't catch on is because also I felt that there is a big misunderstanding of talent communities as well. So today we see candidate communities or candidate, let's say, virtual pile of CVs being referred as talent communities, but these are not communities. They're just sort of some portals and some groups, some corners in a virtual world where some candidates are gathered. Nothing is done to get them to speak to each other, to find out more about the company, or for the company to find out more about the candidates themselves. So we believe that this is for some reason it has been overlooked from both the recruitment industry, which obviously they would be generating the demand for this approach to be installed in the first place, just like brand communities that were actually pushed by marketing and some other departments that reaped massive benefits out of it. For some reason, this hasn't happened, but now we believe that this is the right time to do it, because now there's a massive struggle in the talent, in the talent management, in the talent leadership, in the recruitment industry, about how to manage the next stage of, or the newer approaches to hiring, newer approaches to harboring talent inside an organization. So we believe that it is now the right time to discuss these things. So over to you, Todd.
Yeah, no. So I think you made reference to some of my my candid comments about sort of human resources as a term. It's an old joke, I think, in hiring circles. But it is that idea of HR organizations, like sometimes they're called people organizations or talent organizations, which I think is a much more accurate way to talk about it, and a much more humanized, empathetic way to talk about the people who are building your organizations. Organizations are built of people, not of stuff. And I think that to kind of change our thinking about that a little bit is important. And it's something that I think a lot of organizations try to get their arms around with when they decide to build an online community. Like maybe it's a support community or product community of some sort. Maybe it's a community of practice of some sort, or a partner community, for whatever reason. There's a bit of there's a bit of an adjustment to move from thinking about your customers as these objects to be wooed, or as as users. I think sort of that dehumanizing sense of like, who are your users? No, they're the people in our communities. Our friend Adrian Spare says in his latest book, Accidental Community Manager, we're engaging with people who elect to become members of the community, and that means that they've put some trust in your brand, or in what your message is, for your organization, what your values are. And The idea of starting to build communities, and and if you come from an old school of recruiting, and I had my start many years ago at this, and you thought about your process of recruiting candidates, you may have great one-on-one relationships with those candidates, but you may have a level of discomfort thinking about, wow, do I really want my candidates to be talking to each other and interacting with each other? And like, what if they say mean things about us as a company? Is that going to sour a whole pipeline of candidates? I would say no. I mean, it's an understandable impulse to be worried about that, but I don't think it's a serious worry for the same reason that you don't see people acting out against companies in LinkedIn, on a regular basis, because we all have a professional interest in that organization. People are going to be mindful of how they act out, but having your candidates and interested people in your brand in your online community, and maybe it may be in a dedicated area of your support community. It may be its own standalone community if it's, say, a community for diversity and inclusion, and your commitment to hiring people from diverse backgrounds. That there's a great opportunity around building these spaces and getting people engaged. And I think for me, like the answer to Jenny's question around like why are talent communities not being talked about that much, I think there's a bit of an for some organizations, for some HR and recruitment organizations, they may not have as big a seat at the table to have the access to the funds to do it. Traditionally, a lot of marketing organizations have the purse strings to buy communities or set them up, or they come in at an executive level, and it's all about supporting customers in the product or service which is being provided, not necessarily finding the talent to come in and do it. And so I think maybe that's a piece of it. And I think communities of talent aren't necessarily as popularized or talked about as much as, say, communities of practice, at least among community professionals, because there's been some really good and interesting scholarship from Etienne Wegner and the significant other of that person whose name is eluding me at the moment. But there's been a body of knowledge around communities of practice, not so much around communities of talent. So we see it as a gap. It's an opportunity, and it's something that we want to see more conversations about in groups like SHRM, or So if you're out there and you're part of SHRM, or you're part of an HR practice organization, man, we'd love to come in and talk to you about this and get your ideas about it. I mean, it's not just my experience of having been a recruiter for many years, or Ilker's of having been a professional in a large enterprise where this is something that's come into play. I think it's about your individual experiences as well. And if you've tried to, at least on some level, have a talent community at some portion of this process, that we're offering, whether it's an external kind of earned community, or internal community, or an alumni community, which we think doesn't maybe get nearly. Sorry, very long-winded answer to Jen's question, but I think it was one worth spending some good time on.
Yeah, maybe something else that we can add very, very quickly is up to recently, because I'm a management information systems graduate, one of the things that I fought for in my entire life with top management in terms of buying is, of course, the fact that is to get them to believe that investment into information systems, investment into systems, into hardware and software and whatever, is quite crucial for the company. It's always seen as a cost center, and of course, talent is the biggest cost center in an organization, as you know very well. And only now that it is now being realized that without the right talent, the company is nothing. And these fancy meeting rooms and all sorts of other things that lots of technology companies are offering, they're not really worth anything without the right talent inside. So this is the shift that we're seeing, and this is one of the reasons why, just to add to the answers to Jenny's question, right now, of course, it is now time to talk about sort of talent strategy and talent community, because now it just has to.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And I'm wondering if you might shift perspective a little bit, because as you and I know, as we talk about strategy for building an online community, yes, one side of it is it's about what the organization needs or what the company needs, but it's also about what's in it for the people that you want to join that community. So putting on that perspective for a moment and thinking about a job seeker, what do you see as some of the benefits to a job seeker of, say, joining a talent community for a given brand when they have applied for an opening at that company? Like, why would they want to be a part of that? What kinds of things might they get by joining a talent community at the front part of that experience? And then we can talk a little bit about sort of like once they're an employee and once they leave. Maybe if you can get us on the road there, I'll try to pick up and riff on what you say.
Great. So, thanks for, that sort of diversion, because it's something that, something else that, we'd love to, tell more about to our viewers. So, the most important thing, and we've been talking about this with Todd for some time now, one of the things that we've seen, being done not as it should, just going at it, again, it's not, it's a constructive criticism, put it that way. It's an opportunity, put it that way, for the companies to create more value, is about expectation management. So we believe that, since the turn of the century, since the, let's say, 60s and the 70s, and even in the 80s, where, technology jobs have started to appear, we believe that this is not done as it should, and especially in the technical jobs as well. And I used to manage developer communities for Google. And certainly, I just saw that, the developers, for example, when they wanted to join a company, join a project, put it that way, they really were looking some specific things about the company, about the project in hand, about this next stage of their challenge, before they actually accepted the role. And I'm sure as a recruitment, professional, you probably know this very well, but this is not about money. So certainly, a lot of people are about self-fulfillment, are about, sort of overcoming a challenge, especially the technical people. It has to coincide with their personal values and the next stage of their professional life, so to speak. The only way, we believe, in this day and age, for the candidates to be able to know more about the company is to know more about the project and the team and the culture and everything. Is not like a couple of hours, worth of an interview, especially not certainly a Zoom interview of sorts, or like any, sort of platform interview. It really is an opportunity, an approach where the company is, open and is willing to, let's say, get all the candidates together, support them, tell them more about their vision, what they really want to do, their challenges, and then enthuse the candidates to rise up to that challenge, basically to get motivated towards, getting included in that organization in a capacity that they also want, not only what the man and what the organization wants. And we believe the key to everything for candidates, for this to happen quickly and effectively, is community. So this is the reason why we believe that this is, it's very important to have a very robust candidate community framework, where you're able to interact with your candidates, to know more about them, to know more about their expectations, and to be open about your expectations as a company. Because once these match, there's really no turning back, and it's such a bigger motivator than money or status or whatever it is.
I agree, and I think, like, from that from that candidate, from that talented job seeker perspective, if I'm joining an organization's community where ostensibly it's about me being maybe considered for hire in that organization in some capacity. Maybe I'm a contractor, maybe I'm a full-time employee, doesn't matter. It means that I've somehow bought into the messaging and the values for that company. And it's a chance for me to know that company a little bit better. It's a chance for me to interact and make sure that the values that I think that company stands for seem to be borne out in the communications I have. It lets me have more and more frequent communication with people who are maybe representatives of the company and among more than one person in the company. So you're going to see sort of diversities of opinion about what it is to work there at that organization. And so essentially, it's a nicer way to ensure there's a strong cultural fit for that candidate or that group of candidates. And it's a way, I like the way you put it, to get them enthused about the brand, to make sure that they are energized even more about, like, they already liked your company this much. Let's take them to the next level, which I think is especially important for companies that maybe aren't a brand household name. They're not a Google, they're not a Cisco, they're maybe a mid-level Fortune 1000 company that doesn't have a lot of brand recognition, or maybe even not even a lot of recognition within their vertical space, but that's an opportunity to really stand out as a wonderful culture to work in, and to show what career paths look like. If I'm running a talent community and I'm looking at the kinds of content that I'm sharing in that space, I'm going to be, probably sharing some things from my employer branded careers page, maybe some video clips or things like that. But I'm going to be trying to show some things maybe even further behind the scenes. Maybe I'm going to host some Q&As with employees from a certain department or group. Maybe I'm going to be bringing in some challenges or resources or things that are fun to get to know other people in the company. Maybe I'm going to be offering some ebooks or things for career management, or things that are related to the particular industry that might be really useful to those candidates. Anything that's going to get them hyped about working, with the organization, and keep them coming back on a day-to-day basis, within that community platform framework, instead of waiting for those long dry periods between the next phone call or the next Zoom, or the next interview, because that's where you lose candidates left and right all the time. Guaranteed. I know that still happens an awful lot. And even now it's probably harder because more people want to work remotely, as I kind of listed some of that list of challenges earlier in our conversation here.
No, definitely. So it's also, this is something that we've been going on and on about. So today's employees, let's not say it also generation, I don't want to tie it up to too much to the generation. Everybody's talking about different expectations from Generation Z, blah, blah, blah. So of course, differences in expectations from generations is not something new. We know it from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. Every generation will have its own values. It will have its own expectations and yada, yada. But what we also saw is that, people like Todd and I that belong to not a current generation, even though Todd looks, a very young and sprightly, it's basically people's expectations have also shifted from companies, even when you're an experienced person. So what you now know is, of course, imagine a situation where you're trying to, or you're thinking of becoming a candidate for a company, applying to a company. If you're a candidate who's like really interested, you would want to know more about the company, the working conditions. Maybe you go on some of the websites where people anonymously share their experiences and stuff like that. And we saw that even for the current generation of workers, and of course like workers from all generations, employees of all generations, or candidates of all generations, they're really putting a lot of emphasis on the things that they actually find online. So if you own a company, if you're an executive of a company, if you're recruiting right now, if you're managing the talent flow of your company right now, imagine a situation if you had a structure through which you can actually invest in your candidates even before you recruit them. You just provide them with opportunities of growth, opportunities to know more about your projects. And we've seen this in technical roles. I know so many companies right now in Turkey, and of course in other places as well, where they've very successfully installed tech blogs, where they're talking about their next stage of, let's say, infrastructure changes or challenges or other things, and you see all the technical people, all the developers, all the senior developers, technical managers being so enthused because these are the challenges, these are the problems that they really want to solve, and they know now that with that particular block that these problems exist, and this is something that they can actually achieve when they join the company. And it's the right culture, it's the right sort of people just moving together as a unit. Again, I'm talking about the trees, but let's talk about the forest. It's all about the community. And if you invest in a candidate which is going absolutely against the grain, against the flow of today, where candidates are seen some as taboo, they're just the communication flow is very, very bad, and it's a very stressful situation. There's a lot of ghosting involved. Imagine if, as a company, you've made a difference, you've made a major difference. These people would be your ambassadors for life. As Todd said, he's a boomerang hire. I'm a boomerang hire for Google, of all companies. So why not? You shouldn't have boomerang hires for your companies. But the reason why we're boomerang hires is because we're very happy and understood in the first place. And we believe that in 2022, in 2023, the best way of doing this is to install a framework and understanding and approach of community.
Okay, it looks like we got a spammer out of YouTube. I'm gonna take care of that a little bit later. But so I think we've been going for about 40 minutes. I want to be respectful of your struggles here, Ilker, as well. But I think maybe we've given people enough of a taste of sort of what we have in mind. If you're watching this, live or on the replay, you may have some other questions around how this works. Like, what kinds of platforms are there? Can we use an existing community platform for our customers as part of this? What do we do for an alumni platform? What does it mean to be engaged within with your employees within an internal community or a digital workplace? And then what kinds of success metrics can be impacted by having an approach? And I think, Ilker, it's probably, I hope you think this is fair to say, many organizations have an element of talent communities. Even maybe it's within their organization, they've got educational opportunities or a place for employees to be able to talk about career development or career pathing with what they do. But maybe they don't have a great community attached at the front end of that process, and maybe they don't have a community. Maybe they don't have a great alumni community afterwards. Maybe your recruitment team has a list of people who might be eligible for rehire, but they're not really engaged in any meaningful ways. So what we're proposing is something that is more comprehensive and a more disciplined approach to applying this to an overall talent strategy. If this is appealing to you, we'd love to talk to you about sort of what you're experiencing, because we're thinking about going to market with this as a consulting opportunity, certainly. But we see this as an opportunity to change the world for the better. For me, my career has always been about meaningful work, meaningful pathways, getting people connected with each other. It's why I'm in the community space, and it's my life work. I know you feel much the same way, Ilker. So maybe we can kind of do a quick wrap on this and say, like, hey, definitely reach out to us if this is something that you would like to talk a little bit more about, and we would be delighted to set up a conversation and just kind of see if there's some ideas we can offer you to get on the path.
Certainly. So basically, if you listened to up to now, we thank you, very much for your kind time, and we really hope that you really liked what you heard. So basically, what we're working on is a three-part community, a three-part strategy, which is about candidates. We talked a little bit at length about it. Basically, just viewing and organizing and leading a group of candidates as a community that provides a lot of strengths in that way. And of course, these people will transition into employees at some point. So also installing an understanding of a community to the group of employees inside the company will actually pay major dividends to get them get you to understand your employees, their aspirations, their desired career journey, the skills that they're lacking, and of course, it will also provide them with a safe space to interact with with human resources, with management, with their peers, with mentors, and so forth. And finally, maybe I should have, told us a little bit about it. So if you probably, heard if you were listening in the beginning, I just told you that one of the anchors of our approach was the alumni community. And certainly we believe that this is, vehemently underserved, in the sense that, once people leave the company, the companies, more often than not, they just say goodbye, and then, you never hear from them again. But I'm not going to give brands, but I have some good friends. They used to work for a major apparel company, an American apparel company. And out of their own decision, even after they've left the company, they will never buy another pair of shoe from a different brand. So imagine if you've achieved this, not of course in terms of purchasing decisions, but as an outlook for your own perspective, for your perspective, your impression as a company. These people would be your future mentors. They'd be sending you candidates. They'd be, doing, taking part in the reunions. They'd be your advocates all the life. We believe, as Todd was saying, we believe that this is meaningful, this is powerful, and this is the way to employ people, to contract people, to have people in your organization in 2023. So we believe that a 360-degree approach, where also as an alumni community, as people are leaving, you're actually giving them the opportunity to interact with your company and even to outskill them, as in to prepare them for the next part of their journey. How powerful could that be? I hope this is a good summary, Todd.
I think it's a wonderful summary. I couldn't have said it better. And Ilker, I hope you feel better soon, man. Thank you so much for braving your way through today and doing that. You're always a fun guest to have on, and well, really, I almost want to call you a co-host because we've done a number of these together, and I think we're going to do some more. I'll just mention that you and I just finished recording a 5-part video podcast series about this topic. And if people are interested in that, we'll be posting something up around that in the new year. We'll try to tag it onto this discussion as well. In the meantime, I wish you good rest and hope you're feeling better very soon. And for those of you out there watching this in the live stream who stuck with us, thank you. And if you happen to catch this on the replay, I hope you have a very happy holiday season. Safe, restful, peaceful, whatever holidays you choose to celebrate, may they be great ones. And in the meantime, we will see you back here again on Talk About Your Community on January the 13th, again, for Building Accessible Communities Online with Shelby Edwards. It's going to be great. You won't want to miss it. So please sign up for that via LinkedIn or on YouTube. You can click the Notify Me button. As always, my thanks sincerely to Kalisa Mikkel, our engineer in the background. She is incredible and does so much behind the scenes that most people will never see or know. But really wanted to express my thanks for her, who came onto my team this year. Totally grateful for that, as well as to all the great people in my life in the community world that I've had the opportunity to interact with over this year. Thank you so much. That's it for me. Ilker, see you again soon. And for those of you who tuned in, have a great weekend.
All the best. Thank you.